Some stories live in the shadows, passed down in whispers, protected for generations.
Others claw their way into the light and demand we listen.
I'm Maya,
And I'm Daniel.
and this.
Is Dark Water Media.
There are some stories that demand we lower our voices. Some legends that ask us to step carefully, not because they're make-believe, but because they're sacred to the people who carry them.
Tonight, we're exploring one of the most misunderstood elements of Native American spiritual tradition, and we're doing it with the respect it deserves.
Welcome to Dark Water Media. I'm Maya, and tonight we're approaching a topic that requires us to be different kinds of storytellers. We're talking about skinwalkers, but not the way you've probably heard them discussed before.
I'm Daniel, and before we go any further, we need to establish some ground rules. The Skinwalker tradition, naaldlooshii in Navajo, isn't entertainment. It's a deeply serious part of Navajo spiritual belief, and much of what surrounds it is considered sacred and private.
So, what we're sharing tonight comes from publicly available sources, interviews with Navajo cultural experts who've chosen to speak about this topic, and a commitment to avoid anything that crosses into sacred territory. We're not here to sensationalize or exploit. We're here to understand cultural context and respect boundaries.
And that's important because so much of what people think they know about skinwalkers comes from Hollywood, internet forums, and paranormal TV shows that completely miss the point.
Let's start with what we can respectfully share. According to Navajo Ranger John Dover, who spent years investigating these reports across the Navajo Nation, skinwalkers are understood as shapeshifters within Navajo belief systems.
But here's what's crucial. They're not just mysterious creatures. They represent something much deeper. In Navajo cosmology, there's a concept called hojo, balance, harmony, walking in beauty. Skinwalkers represent the opposite path, the choice to embrace spiritual corruption for personal power.
It's about betrayal of community values. Traditional accounts describe them as people, often those with spiritual knowledge, who've turned to what's called the witchery way. They've broken fundamental taboos and chosen to use their abilities to harm rather than heal.
And this is where Western paranormal culture gets it completely wrong. When people talk about skinwalkers as just another cryptid alongside Bigfoot or the Chupacabra, they're missing the moral and spiritual dimensions that make these stories meaningful to Navajo people.
Shanklin, a Navajo investigator who's spoken publicly about these traditions, explains why there's so much secrecy around this topic. In his words, when you talk about them, you create a spiritual connection with them.
It's not superstition, it's spiritual protection. The belief is that discussing skinwalkers can attract their attention, potentially bringing harm to yourself or your community.
Former Navajo Ranger Stan Milford and John Dover emphasize that the people reporting encounters are often genuinely traumatized, and these cases are treated with absolute seriousness within Navajo communities.
Which brings us to an important point. Many Navajo elders and cultural experts have mixed feelings about any public discussion of this topic. Some believe it's necessary to correct misinformation, while others prefer complete silence.
Now, you've probably heard of Skinwalker Ranch, the Utah property that's become famous for paranormal activity. But here's what most people don't realize. That ranch isn't even on Navajo land.
It's in Ute territory, and the connection to Navajo skinwalker traditions is more complicated than popular media suggests. Some Ute traditions speak of spiritual conflicts with neighboring tribes, but tying the ranch directly to Navajo beliefs oversimplifies both cultures.
The ranch has become this internet-famous hotspot for everything from UFO sightings to interdimensional theories. But when we focus on the spectacle, we lose sight of the deeper cultural and spiritual significance of these traditions.
It's like taking a sacred ceremony and turning it into a theme park ride. The form might look similar, but the meaning gets completely lost.
What's fascinating is that these aren't just historical stories. Contemporary accounts continue to emerge from Navajo communities. Encounters with animals that seem wrong somehow, shadows that move independently, the feeling of being watched in places where no one should be.
John Dover and Stan Milford, during their time as Navajo Rangers, investigated hundreds of these reports. They emphasized that for the people experiencing these phenomena, it's real spiritual warfare, not just spooky encounters.
These testimonies often share common elements: animals running at impossible speeds, creatures that seem to be hybrids of human and animal forms, and most importantly, a sense of profound spiritual wrongness that affects witnesses long after the encounter.
But here's what's crucial. These stories serve a purpose beyond the encounter itself. They're cultural teachings about the consequences of choosing power over community, harm over healing.
This connects to something we explored in our Wendigo episode. Both legends function as moral teachings wrapped in shadow and fear.
The Wendigo warns about the dangers of greed and cannibalism during times of scarcity. The Skinwalker warns about the corruption that comes from betraying your community for personal power.
They're not just scary stories, they're spiritual cautionary tales. They teach about the importance of staying on the path of balance, of choosing to heal rather than harm.
And that's why treating them as entertainment misses the point entirely. These are stories that carry the weight of cultural wisdom, the kind of teachings that help communities maintain their spiritual and moral boundaries.
As we wrap up, it's important to acknowledge what we haven't shared tonight. There are aspects of Skinwalker traditions that are considered sacred and private, meant only for medicine people and community members.
And that's appropriate. Not every story needs to be told to everyone. Some knowledge is protected for good reasons.
If you're interested in learning more, we encourage you to seek out sources from within Navajo communities, the rangers, cultural experts, and writers who've chosen to share their perspectives publicly.
And if you're Navajo yourself, and we've gotten something wrong, or if there are aspects of how we've approached this topic that concern you, please let us know. This is an ongoing conversation, and we want to be part of it respectfully.
The shadows in these stories are not just about fear. They're about respect. Respect for the power of spiritual corruption, respect for the people who carry these traditions, and respect for the boundaries that protect sacred knowledge.
Some stories ask us to lean in and listen closely. Others ask us to step back and honor the silence. Tonight's story asks us to do both.
Thanks for joining us on Darkwater Media. We'll have links to interviews with Navajo cultural experts and writers in our show notes, resources chosen specifically for their respectful and authentic perspectives.
And remember, some conversations are meant to be had quietly, with respect for the people whose stories we're exploring.
Stay curious, stay respectful, and we'll see you next time.